Tobias Siegfried from Columbia University, the Water Center, and I would like to present you some of our work which we've done looking at a particular form of a groundwater depletion problem in parts of semi-arid India. This part which we're looking at is part of Andhra Pradesh here, which is the Telangana region, where we have been working over the last 2 years. This region consists of 9 districts, which are showing a large activity in irrigated agriculture. Okay, and so this irrigated agricultural activity has really expanded in 2 ways, or changed in 2 ways over the last 10 to 20 years, with the advent of cheap pump technology and also especially the populist rural policy program to hand out water for irrigation for free, electricity for pumping irrigation water for free. It has triggered 2 things. The first thing is an intensification towards more water-intensive crops in this region, and the second thing is an extension of irrigated agricultural area into the dry season. So prior to that there was the Kharif season, which was fed by monsoonal rains, which was irrigated from monsoonal rains directly, and the dry season was then a little agricultural activity or only agricultural activity enabled through having local access to shallow, open hand-dug wells. Okay? But with the advent of cheap pump technology and free electricity, what you saw is that everybody rushed into the groundwater exploitation sector, and it was convenient from many perspectives. So, because in your backyard you have groundwater for irrigation, you just turn on the pump whenever the electricity is coming, you let the water flow onto your fields, and you have access to sufficient amount of irrigation water in times of deficits. This has triggered what I call a switch, a regime shift from a sustainable groundwater situation, which existed, or an groundwater irrigation situation prior to 1990, to a situation where, on average, more groundwater is being utilized than what is being recharged in these systems. Okay? And that is obviously giving rise to concern, because this cannot go on over a long time. So what we did is put our heads in the minds of the decision makers, the regional decision makers, and we were really trying to get an idea of how can we explain for the 2 water dominant crops in the dry season how much area is devoted to these particular crops, because this is the crucial determinant how much water for irrigation is needed in this particular season. Okay? So we utilized a regression, the advanced regression approach, where we have 2-staged model selection stage and regression bagging stage, which is the bootstrap aggregation stage for variance reduction, where we came up with models for the individual districts for the Telangana region that show how much irrigated area, as determined or influenced by a host or a whole variety of hydroclimatological features or predictors, that show that sort of dependence by means of a regression approach. Okay? So what we see, for example, see here in one of the predominant groundwater irrigated districts, which is Mahabubnagar, is that the most relevant features or predictors for that the district, which explains the area set aside for the dry season for maize and rice, are, if you look this up here, X26 and X76, which is the June-July previous season rainfall, and the June-July-August precipitation in the previous year. So that's the previous season monsoonal precipitation, the previous year monsoonal precipitation. And how do we understand this now? It's quite intuitive. Put your mind in the head of the farmer. So the monsoonal precipitation, the amount of monsoonal precipitation determines the amount of recharge to the groundwater. Okay? At the beginning of the irrigation season, in the dry season, for each year, the farmers measure the depth to the groundwater table. So they have a particular idea of how much water they have for the dry season for irrigation. Given that knowledge and historical knowledge and experience, they they have an idea, or they map that into the decision, how much area is devoted to these two dominant crops. Okay? And since the precipitation amounts determine the amount of water that is ending up in the groundwater basin, this is actually in a predominantly groundwater irrigated district, one of the key predictors that explains what the farmers are going to do in the following dry season. And this is quite a nice result. But this is not the only result. Obviously we have different results, and the quality of our results is very variable across different districts, also depending on the amount of how much mixed basket access they have for irrigation, the ability to have different access to different means of irrigation sources. Okay? So what we derive from that is, I would say, 2 or 3 things. One very important thing is the fact that our models show the importance of conjunctive use and having access to diversified means of irrigation. Okay? Solely relying on groundwater is not good. Solely relying on governmentally sponsored irrigation water is not good. Solely relying on your irrigation tank in the backyard is not good. But having the option to choose from a different host of sources for irrigation water is really the key, not only for that region, but also for many other parts in India, which is my strong belief. The second thing which we derive from our work here is a simple rule for conjunctive use management, if you then have established it. Okay? The simple rule would simply mean is like use surface water for irrigation in wet years and use the groundwater in dry years. End of story. Very simple. And you can put it into the farmer's head. And if we can actually anticipate how much area is set aside for these water-dominant crops in a particular season, we can actually get an idea from the planner's perspective where to store, where to incentivize, what to sort of support in terms of development of additional irrigation water sources, so as to address this crucial and very dramatic groundwater depletion phenomena in this particular region. Thank you.